everyone. Welcome to Living Consciously. I'm Carol Carnes. You know what I have been involved with for over 30 years and have been teaching that long is something called Modern New Thought Spirituality. And it's a very empowering teaching in that it doesn't ask us to memorize rules and regulations and things to do. Rather, it gives us tools to use our mind in a very intentional way. Now, the point being that our mind is creative and that it is co-creating with an invisible force, that universal something that I call spirit or universal mind. And the founder of this teaching in modern times, one of them was Dr. Ernest Holmes, a mystic and a very practical man at the same time who lived in the 20th century. Now, he said something that I'm going to start off today with in this talk that I'm calling First Steps. He said, we cannot expect to be happy if we are carrying corpses on our back. Now, Ralph Waldo Emerson, who was another great teacher of this, said the same thing, and he used the same word corpse. They both did it intentionally because it conjures up, no one wants to be carrying something dead on their back. And yet, that's what the past is. It is dead. It is not real. It doesn't exist. Only in our mind. And that's where it's alive. And because our minds are creative, what is alive in our mind affects our body. First, our physical body, our emotional body, and then the body of our affairs, or our bank account, our relationships, our work, our world. And so it is extremely important that you and I learn to let go. You know, in modern psychology, they call it baggage, which is a little less unsavory than carrying around a corpse, because you can put wheels on your baggage, right? Just tote it around and be portable, right? Which is what a lot of people do. They put wheels under their baggage and take it everywhere they go. I laugh because I've done it myself. So life can be very heavy if we're carrying a burden, and we need to learn how to release it. One of my images is of a train attached to my back. And a student said this to me once, that you just reach around and unhook it. And if you image that, you can see this long train just falling away down a hill behind you, down the mountainside behind you. And that's about what we need to do, is work with our mind to create an image of letting go of the past. How do you do that? We're going to talk a lot about that today. We're going to talk a lot about how important it is. I'm going to give you some examples of a few people I've come to be aware of recently as last night, on a show called America's Got Talent, who have really stepped out of their past like nobody's business. Last night was the final. And you know how the show goes. It goes over several weeks' time, and it starts off with a whole slew of people, and it narrows down, and the audience votes. And it came to the final five. And 3 of the final 5 were these young women. One of them was named Ketchy. And she had been in a plane crash many years ago and was horribly burned. I mean, ghastly burned. And her face and her body, there were scars everywhere and stretched skin and really horrific scarring and disfigurement. She had the most beautiful singing voice. Now you see, what she did was she took a first step out of her disability into what everybody else was doing, being themselves on planet Earth, or trying to. And she entered this contest and she became a finalist with this beautiful voice. She stood up there. You would never know if you weren't looking or just listening that there was anything wrong with that young woman. And of course there wasn't really, except her looks. And it was really a beautiful thing to see that she had taken that step into her dream, regardless of the past, Because if you've been in a plane crash and you've been horribly disfigured and burned, I think you have every reason to be upset and mad and maybe even just give up. Now, the other finalist, her name was Mandy. Beautiful young girl with another beautiful voice. And she was probably late 20s. But 10 years ago, she completely lost her hearing. No hearing whatsoever. Uses sign language to communicate. But she was able to retain her regular speaking voice. She didn't sound like you sometimes hear with people who can't hear. And her singing voice was gorgeous. And when they talked to her about what got her there, she said, you know, there was a time when this first happened to me where I was so devastated and so depressed. And because music was my life, I just thought, what if I can never sing again? What if I can't hear those songs anymore? How will I be able to communicate my music or myself? I can't hear anything. And she said, I was literally on the floor. Have you ever been on the floor in your life? I have. Not quite as bad as that one. I mean, that's a big challenge, isn't it? But she said, I said to myself, you can sit here and just let life happen around you. Just be the person who can't hear. Or you can get up off the floor and take the first step back into life. And that's what she did. And she wound up on America's Got Talent, the second runner-up. Can you imagine? I mean, I can, because I've seen people overcome all kinds of things. You think of the wounded veterans who come back with missing limbs and they find ways to drive cars and ski and enter the Olympics and dance and do all kinds of things that everybody else is doing, because they take the first steps, literally in that case, to adjust to what is and let the past go. See, that's the secret to letting the past go, is being very present now. That's really key. So the third little girl, the one who won, she won $1 million. Her name was Darcy. She was a ventriloquist, and I mean gifted. And her puppets would sing, and that was her voice. She's a magnificent singing voice herself. But the reason she has been hiding behind her puppets, as in her own words, was because she was so shy. She was only 12 years old, but she was so shy before that it was literally crippling her. And she couldn't speak. And how she got her voice back was through these puppets. And here she is, the winner of America's Got Talent. Stunning. Another little girl, Angelica, she was the second runner-up actually. 9 years old, sings like Judy Garland, sings like an adult. And I forget what her deal was, but she had something she had to overcome too. I think she had a lot of surgeries in her infancy and stuff. So all of these young people refused to let the past dictate the present, and therefore their future. So that's really how it works. I often say, you know, if we could just all realize this and remember it, we would be so much happier and healthier and well off than we are, because we are participating in the unfoldment of our own life all the time. So do we want to drag the past with us? Do we want to imagine yourself carrying a corpse on your back. It's a pretty unpleasant thought. And yet, that dead past, if it isn't dealt with, creates havoc in our life, especially intimate relationships. I talked to somebody recently, and I couldn't get over how, I hadn't talked to him in about 10 years. I couldn't get over how angry he still was about his childhood. And he's 70 years old. It's like, I think it's time you let that go. But you know, people get so caught up in identifying themselves as what happened. And that's the big mistake. You are not what happened. This is the overriding message of New Thought. You're greater than your experience. You're greater than any experience you've ever had, ever will have, or are having now. You are. Who is always present in your life? As you move from experience to experience to experience, it's you, right? I'm always the one that's observing, perceiving, and interacting with life. I'm the one. I'm always here. So to be present and not dragging the past with me is the big first step to take in moving out of a predictable, mediocre, challenging life into one that's really creative, happy, healthy, and on the move, you know. You can't really take advantage of opportunities that come up. You won't even see them if your mind is all cluttered up with how it was before, because maybe you won't even be aware of it, but you'll have feelings of what if it happens again, or I should protect myself, or defend myself, or they're all alike, or it never, you know, that kind of thinking. We call it negative thinking, but it's really sad. It's saying, I don't know who I am, and I'm afraid that I don't have any power in this life, and that I can be put upon, I can be taken from, I can be hurt. And we're saying, no matter what goes on, you're greater than that. And the more we realize that, the more we tend to stop attracting those situations that cause us to succumb to fear or anger or the old patterns repeating themselves. So we can take a cue from those young women that were on America's Got Talent. If you have Netflix, watch that last episode. It was really stunning and very moving. But there are people like that all over the planet all the time that are overcoming great odds, and they have to in order to get up off the floor and take the next step. So we want to look at our lives today and say, well, is there any place where I'm dragging something along with me that is very familiar, it's been there a long time, do I really need it anymore? And ask yourself, what is it giving me? What am I getting out of it? What is the payoff, as we used to say? You know, what is the overriding experience I have of life from this that I'm dragging around with me? It's not going to be positive, I can guarantee you. It will be some way, likely, that we are protecting ourselves. So we want to talk about also today how to stay in the present. It's difficult to stay in the present because there's so much going on that we have to attend to. You know, do you ever feel like that? Like, whoa, 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 especially these days. That we sometimes retreat back into how it was. That, you know, there's so many people that would like things to go back to where they were 50 years ago or 20 years ago or yesterday. They're not really present. So in the second half of the show, we're going to talk about some very practical tools that help us to release the past. I mean, seriously, release it. And stay in the present. If you stay in the present, you're not bringing the past with you, right? Okay, we're going to do that. Now, we have a break time coming up, so let's give our sponsors their due attention and listen to the messages they have for us, and we're very grateful for them, by the way. And we'll be right back. Don't go away.
This is a national healthcare alert from the Health Hotline. If you, a family member, or a loved one suffers from knee pain and have Medicare as your primary insurance, we've got great news. You could qualify for a pain-relieving knee brace at little or no cost to you. Get free delivery, and all the paperwork is handled by our accredited suppliers at no charge to you. We also have other pain-relieving braces available for shoulder, ankle, and your back. Call the number on your screen right now to immediately receive a pain-relieving brace at little or no cost.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call Low Cost Airlines. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call now.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business. According to the secret war, banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get the secret war free. Call the number on your screen or visit online.
All right, we're back. This is Living Consciously, and I'm Carol Carnes. If you've just tuned in, we've been talking today about releasing the past, unhooking it as if it were a train attached to our back and letting it fall down the hill. Because we can't make advances if we're dragging the dead past along with us. And that's that old image of baggage or a corpse we're dragging around. You cannot be light. You know, I love the name from Breakfast at Tiffany, Holly Go Lightly. It's like we can't go lightly if we are not present. So I said in the end of the first segment that we would talk about how to stay present, and there are some very good tools. Is it possible, let's ask this question, to be so present now, in this moment, that our dominant awareness is of our spiritual wholeness and our unlimited potential? See, that actually is what is contained in this now moment, this little moment right here, between the thoughts, this space of awareness, our spiritual wholeness and our unlimited potential. And I use the word dominant on purpose because it tends to be the dominant thoughts that we walk around with that take form, that become experience. You know, it's just really true that you cannot have an experience higher or lower than your dominant thinking about it. And that's true of prosperity, it's true of health, it's true of peace, it's true of relationships, it's true of everything about your life. It can't be better or worse than your dominant thought. That's a big empowering idea. And if it's embraced, it can really make life a lot easier and a lot more fulfilling. So how to stay there? Well, I got some really practical tools, and they're nothing new to you, but I want to talk about them in a little different way. The first one is gratitude. There's nothing like gratitude to keep you in the present moment. And I'm going to advise that you actually write a list every day, every morning, and maybe every night before you go to bed. A gratitude list, and write it with your hand. There's something about the hand, the brain, the sight, everything working together that makes a really deep imprint in the subjective subconscious mind, and that's where you want it to go. Because it's from that subjective realm that old ideas take form if they aren't supplanted, removed, as it were, by a better thought. So we want our dominant thought at the beginning of the day and the end of the day to be gratitude. Doesn't that make sense? I am grateful. You know, if you want to know more about this, get on David Stendal Rost's website. I think it's called the Grateful Project. He's a beautiful Christian mystic monk, and he's all about gratitude. So write the list in your hand. Maybe you want to decorate the paper, whatever. Just make it a lovely experience. And if you're in a place now, like in the first hour we talked about Ketchy, the young lady that survived a plane crash. You might think, what would she be grateful for? Well, life. In fact, she said that, I'm just grateful to be alive. She says, I thank God that I'm here. Unbelievable for most people to be like that without having had that experience of losing your life and getting it back. But we can be grateful every day for something. And I'm thinking make a list of 20 things every day in the morning and night, so that it just builds and builds and builds. And so you're filled with gratitude. It's your dominant thought, okay? It could be, I am grateful for the blue sky. I'm grateful for balloons. I'm grateful for birthday cakes. I'm grateful for the smell of freshly mown grass. I'm grateful for my children. I'm grateful for my dog. I'm grateful for an old teacher. Whatever it is, just be grateful. Fill it. Your mind, your body, your room, everything. The energy of gratitude is extremely healing and pushes out all other thoughts. See, this is the reason we do these things, is because our mind is creative. That's a thing to remember. The second thing to do are affirmations. Now, affirmations in and of themselves aren't necessarily going to change your life. It's the accumulation of the affirmative idea that does that. And affirmations just, that old thing about keep your mind stayed on the good, the true, and the beautiful. That's what we're talking about. That's affirmative thinking. So you take your gratitude list, I am grateful, and turn it into an affirmation. I am grateful that my days are filled with loving relationships. I am grateful that everyone I meet prospers me, and everyone I meet is prospered by me. See, it's gratitude turned into an affirmation. Or you could say, I am now aware of the eternality of my being. I am now aware that I am always present throughout my life and the cause of my own experience. Yes, things bump into each other sometimes. The plane crashed, but she was the one who was present and is still present in that experience of being her, and she's not any less herself than she was before it happened, not any less. Looks have changed, that's all, right? So make these affirmations big, bold, first person, present tense, affirming something as if it had already happened and as if it is already so. This is tricky for a lot of people when they first start, but it's already so in the spiritual realm, and everything begins there. Every idea comes from that spiritual realm, that field of all potentialities. So that's where it exists. If you thought of it, it exists. So your affirmation could be, I am forever in the midst of joyful friends, something like that. I am always doing work I love and love the work I'm doing. These kinds of affirmations are ideas that are greater than how we usually walk around thinking, right? We usually walk around judging things and accounting for things and wishing they were different, pushing against them. So affirmations keep us on a higher level of perception, which is where we want to be. That's where the good changes come from. If we're on a higher level of perception, that's all they're for. They're not magic. They're a way of dealing with the thinking mind to bring it back to center. Bring it where it needs to be, at that original starting place of I am. Spirit speaking as us, I am the glory of being made manifest. I am life as Carol. Whoever, right? So gratitude list, and then turn them into affirmations. And of course, I always recommend meditation. And if you can't meditate, learn how. Learn how. Come see me on Sunday morning. I'll teach you. But do get some quiet time in your life. Do get some time when you're not writing and you're not affirming. You're just sitting in the silence. Yes, your mind will go off thinking. That's okay. You are the one observing your thoughts. And that's a very powerful experience when you realize, oh, I'm not my thoughts. I'm observing them. Boop, boop, boop. Little blips on the screen, right? They mean nothing. They mean nothing. You mean something. Okay? And the other things you can do to keep your mind stayed on the good, the true, and the beautiful are physical things like dance, ecstatic dance. I'm not talking about learning difficult routines, but you get all frustrated. I'm talking about just dancing, turning on some music in your house and let it loose. I do it often. I love it. And just let yourself feel the joy of being like a small child, dancing, clapping, and or you could do yoga, or you could do singing, toning, just for, you don't have to sound good. Believe me, I don't. I remember when I was a kid, my mother and my sister and I would be washing and drying dishes in the kitchen, and we'd be singing opera. Just making up stuff like, hand me the towel. But, but it kept us in a more joyful, easy mood in the middle of a task. Well, life is kind of a task sometimes, okay? All right, so gratitude, affirmation, meditation, movement, music, dance, yoga, or learn to play an instrument. Play the ukulele, it's fairly easy, and it'll keep your mind stayed where it needs to be. All right. There's just so many things we can do for ourselves. And it's really important that we take the reins back, take our own life back. It doesn't matter what's going on in the world. The world will right itself. It'll shift and change as it always has and always will. But you can have a better experience no matter what's going on. And it has to do with the dominant thoughts in your mind. It has to do what you're filling your attention with, what you're paying attention to. And most importantly, what you're affirming yourself to be. I am. Think about that. What are you going to add on to I am? It's very important. All right, so as I say every week, you can come and see me in person. Big deal, right? But if you know, a Sunday morning is a good way to start your week or end your week with a very intentional experience of being in a spiritual setting, which is not woo-woo. It's just us sitting in chairs at the Town of Mesilla Community Center at 10:30. And we do a little meditation, I do a talk, and we do some discussion afterwards. And we have refreshments. So come and join us. It's a lot of fun. And get on our website, www.mvcsl.org. There it is, right on the screen. And you can make a donation to us. We are a nonprofit 501(c)(3). We rely on donations, and we definitely appreciate your financial support so that we can stay on the air too. This is like a free class you're getting, right? So you can help us out a little bit. In the meantime, you take good care of yourself and make some affirmations, do some gratitude, and you can also tell your friends that these lessons are on YouTube under Living Consciously, Carol Carnes. Okay, thanks so much for your support. In the meantime, stay tuned in, and I hope to see you again soon.